Namaskar. Welcome to this session. We are considering the 5 forms of the Indriyas, and we have come to Swarupam, the second form. Now we proceed to the third form of Indriyas called Asmita Rupam. So Asmita Rupa is the third form of Indriyas. The Sankhyas posit that Indriyas come from Ahankara Tattva, and therefore, as mentioned on an earlier occasion, for Patanjala, Sankhyas and Vedantis called Ramanujiyas consider the senses as ensuing from Ahankara Tattva, while Nayayikas and the Advaitins posit that they come from Bhutas. For them, Indriyas are Bhautika, while for Sankhyas, it is Indriyas are Ahankarika. And this has been considered on an earlier occasion. And even in the worldly plane, functional form of the senses, there is always the me behind the senses, the I behind the senses. Without the pronoun I behind it, you will never say that I perceived, I sensed, I tasted, I touched, etc., etc. So, that awareness of the pronoun I or influence of the pronoun I has to be there behind the senses for them to function. Even for the Grahana form, it is necessary. Because if we are not having advertence, many times the things in front of us go unperceived. And that's why we need advertence for perception. Now this advertence is from whom? It is from oneself. That is pronoun I. So for registering an object around you, you need this advertence, you need the sense of I and the I behind the senses. And that is what we call as advertence. It's also called Satarkata. It is called Avadhanam. And without that Avadhanam, it is Anavadhanam. And when it is Anavadhanam, we do not allow the Indriyas to function in their operative form. So when we see the things through the eyes, we say, I saw it. When they hear through the ears, we say, I heard it. And this is the case of all sensory perceptions. So we can understand how much the pronoun I is influencing the function of these senses. So Jnana Karmendriya both have always as a substrate the asmita or the aham or the I-ness or me, and without those behind it, it is not possible for the senses to function. So that is why the Sankhyas quite logically posit that Indriyas are Ahankarika. So Asmita evolves into senses according to Sakya cosmology. And then our reaction to sensory functions is also, as I just now said, I saw it, I heard it, I tasted it, I touched it, I smelt it. So they see the aham and I behind all this perception. So that's why it can be easily understood that there is asmita behind senses, asmita behind indriyas. Because when the stomach is aching, you don't say that the stomach has an ache, but I don't have an ache. So even with reference to Sharira Indriyas, we have this influence of Asmita or I-ness on them. So that's the Asmita Rupam that we can easily understand, and cosmology tells us that the Ahankar Tattva precedes the Indriyas. And that's how the Asmita Rupam is to be understood. So that's about the third form. The fourth is Anvaya. Anvaya means this is Gunanvaya. You should recall while discussing the 5 forms of the Bhutas, we had this Anvaya Rupam there too, and the Anvaya Rupam was understood as concomitants of Sattva Rajatama, 3 gunas, cosmic gunas. So by particular combination, a proportion in combination, the effect is Indriyas. Another proportion of 3 gunas, it is something else. It is stone and water and fire, and we know the Gunanvaya behind all the prakritic things. So the Gunanvaya is always behind all the prakritic manifestations, all manifestations of Prakriti. And the change in proportion means change in matter. The change in proportion of Sattva Rajatama Guna means you get a different matter. Say for instance, colored water. The colored water can be colored in various colors. So which color has come with prominence, that is the color the water gets. Or in case of that concoction called kashaya, which is boiling certain things in the water, and then it has medicinal value, and it becomes a kind of concoction of so many chemicals from different things. That is called kashaya in Ayurveda. It is bitter. So you also find water in that cup which you consume as very bitter substance which has a medicinal value. Then the liquid beverages up to Basundi, you will also find that there is water in it because there are liquid forms of preparations. So sometimes we had considered this example of 4 ingredients of a cup of tea, hot beverage: water, milk, sugar, tea leaves. Now when they come in particular proportion, it becomes that hot beverage which is labeled as a cup of tea. But if you change the proportion of all the same ingredients, you can get something, as I said, that it is black water, dark water, blackish or brownish water, or it is bitter water, or it is sweet. It's a sweet beverage. If sugar has come in big proportion and the others have come in nominal proportions, milk and sugar coming prominently, and just a drop of water and maybe a tea leaf as a coloring agent, then you get something like Basundi. So try to understand how many compounds can you really prepare with these 4 ingredients coming in different proportions. So Sattva Raja Tama Gunas come in different proportions and give you different manifestations of matter, such as Prithvi, Aptej, Vayu, Akash, such as solid, liquid, gaseous matter, such as edible matter, non-edible matter, such as stones and metals, etc., to pebbles, to sand, to dust, everything is sattva raja tamo gunas. Yachayavat, the entire prakritic things are of sattva raja tamo gunas. So it happens by different proportions coming in and turning out the matter, solid, liquid, gaseous, to edible, non-edible, metals to earthen, the earthen matter to watery matter to fiery matter to airy matter to spatialized matter. It's all sattva raja tamo gunas come. That's the incredible thing about the three gunas. That's why they are called Prakriti, because they are a creative cause for all the manifestation in the universe. So that helps us deduce the Anvaya form of Sattva Raja Tamo gunas even behind the senses. And the fifth and final form is called Arthavatvam, purposiveness. Now in the metaphysics we learnt in the second chapter, Sattva Raja Tamo gunas have a purpose, Bhogarthata, Apavargarthata. So also here the purpose behind all indriyas, karmendriyas, jnanendriyas, sarvendriyas, antakarnendriyas, they all have a purpose, and the purpose is either bhogarthata or apavargarthata. That is according to the teleology, which was again studied by us in the second chapter called Sadhanapada. So they always have a purpose. There is nothing is purposeless. And the purpose of whom? Purpose of Purusha. Purpose of what kind? Purpose of the nature of Bhogarthata, Apavargarthata. So in the teleology we had considered this thing, and therefore that is the fifth and final form of the senses. Whether the senses are conative or cognitive or mental organs or body organs, all these organs have the purpose to serve, and the purpose is to serve the Purusha, and purpose is by way of Bhogarthata, Apavargarthata. So this was the topic that we discussed in the branch of metaphysics called teleology. Now, finally, for you to really understand these forms in perspective, let's understand the entire collocation of indriyas, body of indriyas, which we have within us, is usually for, on the Arthavatva point of view, Bhoga Kendra. They are the Kendra or centers for Bhoga. And in the case of an accomplished yogi, they are centers of Apavarga. They radiate Apavarga for a yogi, an accomplished yogi, and they radiate Bhoga for we mortals. So it will be interesting for you to really understand the thing in perspective if you form a table, and table having two columns. On the left hand side column mention Bhoga Kendra, center of Bhoga, and on the right hand side column caption is Apavarga Kendra, that is transcendent purpose, Arthavatva. So see, how is the Gunanvaya in us? How the Sattva-Raja Tama Gunas come in us? See, in what proportion Tamoguna and Rajoguna are coming in us? On the other hand, the yogi's column as a Apavarga Kendra, there will be preponderance of Sattva Guna. So we will see that Gunanvaya is different in Indriyas between we mortals and the transcendent beings, yogis. Asmita. In us, how is the Asmita? Infested with lot of delusion about one's self, one's I-ness. So how is our Asmita behind the senses? And how is yogi's Asmita behind the senses, who is usually in a witnessive state? Even when the yogi is awakeful, he is in witnessive state. And in his yoga avastha also you can understand how is the Asmita constituting as Apavarga Kendra. Swarupam. What is the Swarupa form of the senses in we mortals, and what is the Swarupa form in a yogi, accomplished yogi, either in state of yoga, and of course he should be in a state of yoga for Apavarga Dayakatvam. Apavarga Kendra should be operative. So see how the Swarupam would be different. So also Grahana. In Grahana we will have the senses going after their objects. They will be having gravity of their objects. And while yoga there is Vishaya Vinivartanam. In case of a yogi, the Grahana Rupa will be, the senses are weaned away from their respective objects. So this will give you a little idea of the Indriyas in you and me and we mortals, and Indriyas in a yogi. So that is the final form of the Indriyas. And how the Indriya would be having a transmutation, transfiguration, while one is in yoga sadhana, or one is taking recluse in paramartha or spirituality, or is in satsanga, etc., or apavarga prayojanam. So when it is apavarga center operative, see the transmutation and transfiguration in the senses, and when it is bhoga kendra operative, how it is completely mutilated state and senses in mutiny. So anyway, there are these 5 forms, and by samyama on the 5 forms, yogi is said to be endowed with Indriya Jaya. That's the conquest of Indriya, of a yogi. And in an earlier occasion we had discussed various forms of Indriya Jaya, which comes in Niyamas, which comes in Kriya Yoga, which comes in tapas of Niyamas, and which comes in Pratyahar, and the one that comes to Samyama. This would be supreme most kind of Indriya Jaya. And then due to Indriya Jaya, yogi gets certain powers called Manojabitvam. That means yogi gets velocity of the mind for himself. So it will put to shame velocity of light, because the velocity of light has a limited velocity of the order of 300,000 kilometers per second. But the mind has absolute velocity. So yogi can get this velocity of mind. In the velocity of mind, he can be changing the locations. So he needs no time to be going anywhere. So in no time he will be anywhere, be that distance of thousands of miles or 10,000s of miles or millions of miles or billions of miles or light years or multiple light years and thousands of light years. In no time, yogi can be going traversing that distance. That is manojavitvam. And then vikarana bhava. Vikarana bhava means, as already explained, yogi can send out his senses. It doesn't have to go take his body to really have perception of something or audition of something. And perhaps he can send 5 senses to 5 different directions and have 5 different perceptions taking place. So that is vikaranam. Vikaranam means to separate them from indriya golakas, from their spots in our body. So yogi can unplug them and send them anywhere he wants to. So if you want to sight London, you have to go to London. If you want to sight Himalayas, you have to go up to Himalayas. But here yogi will send the eyes and will have the vision and will come back. So that is vikarana bhava. And then pradhana jaya. Pradhana jaya is conquering the primeval matter. And the yogi with such a mastery is given the label called madhupratika. There are various bhumis of yogis. So this bhumi is said to be madhupratika. And this is the second plane or hierarchy of yogi. In Patanjali's text we come across various levels of yogi. Madhumati, that's the first one. First hierarchy is Madhumati. Then second level is called Rutambara Pragnya Prapta. And the third one, which is mentioned just now, is Madhupratika. And the fourth one is Shesha. That means after having accomplished Asampragnat Samadhi, that is the supreme plane called Shesha. So Madhumati Pragnya Prapta, Madhupratika, Vishoka and Shesha. So the first plane is Madhumati. This plane, yogi, is one who is accomplished in Rutambara Pragnya. So we have seen in the first chapter, Rutambara Tatra Pragnya. So yogi is now endowed with Rutambara Pragnya. And that is the first bhumi called Madhumati. The second one is the one mentioned just now. It is also called Madhupratika, where Pradhana Jaya occurs. Then comes the Vishoka Bhumi. Vishoka Bhumi is the third plane, and Shesha, Samskara Shesha, is the fourth one. So Madhumati, Madhupratika, Vishoka, Samskara Shesha. Samskara Shesha means one who has accomplished Asampragnat Samadhi, and definition of Asampragnat Samadhi tells us Samskara Shesha Anyaha. So that's the fourth and final bhumi. So these are described in the commentary of Vyasa. They are also described in different words: Prathama Kalpika, Madhupratika, Pragnya Jyoti, Atikranta Bhavaniya. So this is another set of nomenclatures given to the four planes. And the yogi reaching Pradhana Jaya has been discussed just now. And after having attained this, the yogi gets once again the Sattva Purusha Anyatakhyati, which was already mentioned in an earlier part of the Vibhuti Pada. And when that is attained, the next siddhi comes up, that is called Sarva Bhava Adhishtatrutvam and Sarva Jnatrutvam. So that comes after Sattva Purusha Anyatakhyati for a yogi who has reached the Madhu Pratika plane, which was discussed in this sutra, Pradhana Jaya, and then he gets a culminative siddhi called Sarva Bhava Adhishtatrutvam and Sarva Jnatrutvam. What is that? That is to be discussed in our next session. So enough for the time being. Namaskar all of you.